No Box Dance presents Dance Behind the Screen, process production, and social media. Don't forget, say no to the box. Dile no a la caja. 고정관념 이란 상자에서 벗어나세요.
Welcome to Dance Behind the Screen podcast. This is your co-host, Martheya. We are wrapping up season 5, and we have a repeat guest for today's show. Be sure to listen back to season 1, episode 7, where we talk about what it's like to create music for dance, music licensing, and the impact of social media on sharing music. Do you have any guesses yet for who today's guest is? Today, we have one of the most innovative and impactful composers and educators in the world of contemporary music and dance. Welcome back to our show, Michael Wall.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to be back.
We're so excited to have you here. In this season, we've been talking all about the business side of dance, like I was telling you. And the business that you have created at Sound for Movement is absolutely incredible and is helping so many dance artists, educators, musicians, including myself. And I'm really excited to talk with you about how you really created this thriving subscription-based model. But before we dive in, can you briefly introduce yourself and Sound for Movement?
Absolutely. And thank you. That's so kind of you to say. I always appreciate how supportive you are to the people you bring on. So thank you for doing that. My name is Mike Wall, and I'm a musician and composer. And like you said, I work specifically with dance, primarily with dance. In the community, I am an accompanist, I'm a performer, like I said, I'm a composer and an educator, and I collaborate with choreographers and dancers and dance companies from all over the world. I handle about 200 to 300 commissions a year. That still is pretty steady since the last time I spoke to you. And the big shift in my life right now is that I've left higher education. I think the last time we spoke, I was just entering in to my position as program head at the School of Dance at the University of Utah. And that was pre-COVID. We were on Skype, which was so cute. I listened back and it's like, we were on Skype. It's so cute. Now we're on Zoom.
Dating
and
us.
we had no idea what was coming down the pike, at all. And a lot of the things we discussed on that was like a lot of that stuff came to fruition. Some of the things we were talking about, like, oh, I wonder if this is going to happen. It came from there. So right now I've been over the last 2 years building up my company, Sound for Movement, and creating a new, like you were saying, a new type of business model for a musician in dance and how music for dance is taught. And so the big change was to leave higher ed and to take all of the things I've learned over 15 years teaching in higher ed and make all of that curriculum available for folks online so that you didn't have to just go to get that content in a university.
I think a great place for us to start is touching on what a subscription-based business model is. So for our listeners who don't know, this is a typical model where customers are charged a reoccurring fee to access a product or service instead of a one-time expense. And these subscription-based business models seem to be a way of the times. Big companies that you might all know are like Netflix or Spotify, or even meal delivery services like Home Chef and Blue Apron. I think these are some great examples. And I feel like what you've created with Sound for Movement is a subscription-based business model. Can you talk about why you chose that model?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I've been in a process of launching this subscription model. I started it maybe a year and a half ago, just a soft launch of it to see if people would respond to it in our community, because we don't have many models like that in our community. They're growing more, especially now with dance classes being online. You're seeing some of these models pop up. But there just really wasn't anything like that. So I did like a soft kind of launch, and there was a lot of interest in it. And so I've been building for the last couple of years how to best launch all of that content, all the educational content. And like you said, subscription models are a part of our time. Like most of the things that I interact with on a daily basis are based on subscription models, whether it's the AI I use in Notion now, or or like you said, Spotify or Adobe Creative Cloud. These are all like these are all normalized things in our community right now. And I knew that I wanted to make some sort of digital product with sharing this curriculum. And because the books that were out there, there's only, one, I'm in a space where there aren't a lot of materials, which is such a strange thing. I'm in an educational space with no educational materials for it. Our content's usually taught word of mouth in universities. So I knew that the few folks that had put books out, they went out of relevance even before they were published, because it takes so long to get a book published. And then that stuff was set in stone. And our community is moving even quicker now. So much, we last spoke 4 years ago, and so much has changed in the last 4 years, 3-4 years. So I knew I wanted to be able to edit the content always and constantly. So an online model was the way I wanted to go. And a subscription model is it's just so much less expensive than a book. Most of our books in education are from $75 to up to $300, and so a year subscription on my site, even now, is less than that, or on par with that. And and it's way less than an education in a university, which is tens and tens of thousands of dollars. So this was the most accessible, least cost that wasn't free to put out. And so that's why I wanted to do a subscription model. The majority of my income right now is maybe about more than 50% of my income. I just did my taxes, so I have these numbers. It's actually 56%. Yeah, 50%, 56% actually of my income is on client work or collaborative work. So compositions for dance companies and things like that. And just like playing a ton of classes a day, I love that, and I'm built for that. I get so much inspiration. That's the way I am as a musician and artist. Composing is it's very much like that. I started off freelancing, doing about 6 hours a day of composing for other companies and for clients. And now I'm into year 2 almost, and I'm burned out. It's a lot. It's a lot to do that, plus make new music that I release that's available for licensing. And then also to try and really build, like I was saying, the main reason I left higher ed is to build this educational content. So that stuff all happens still, even though I'm a freelancer, it still happens before my workday. So at 6 o'clock in the morning is when I'm working on writing content for curriculum and things like that. And it hasn't interfered with my client work. So what I did to create the subscription models was to take my income and divide it monthly into what I would need monthly to live, and to kind of replace that client income, that collaboration income. Not that I'm going to start composing for dance. That's not the messaging I'm trying to get. But I do want to spend the next 2 or 3 years really building out this educational content for our community. It's going to take another 2 or 3 years. I have about 20 or 30 more courses to put out, and it's going to take a long time to build all that stuff. So I'm trying. So I took that math, and I took the size of my audience, either from my email list, and combined it with the followers I have on Instagram. And I think last time I talked, I was on Facebook, and then I left, and now I'm back. And I took all those things, and they say to divide it and look at 10% of your audience is probably going to interact with something that you're selling. That's a pretty safe bet. And then of that 10%, probably 1% of that, of that 10%, another 10% of that 10%. So 1% of your total audience is probably going to engage in a subscription-based model. And so I took that number and multiplied it by 5, 10, and 20. And if I have, 250 subscribers at the $20 thing, then that really offsets my monthly income. And so I can focus more on the educational content. If I have 500 subscribers, then that really offsets at the $10 model, then that really offsets my monthly income, and then at 5, it's, if I have 1,000 of those. So, and those are all super low numbers in terms of monthly subscribers. Usually, people average somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000 in the educational space like this. I hope it's going to be a lot more, and if it is a lot more, you'll see those prices coming down. Right now, that's like the bare minimum for me to, like I said, the main goal is to get support from the community to shift that weight of composting all of the time. It's like, it's so quickly bringing me to and teaching me about burnout and balance of work and everything. And
the No Box Dance Film Festival, NBFF, is now accepting submissions for its 5th year as an independent film festival. NBFF seeks dance-related films that challenge the possibilities of what dance can look like in video form. NBFF has 4 categories for submissions: short series, general, documentaries, and kids. For more information on how to apply, visit filmfreeway.com/KNOW BOX Dance Film Festival. And I appreciate how open you're being and transparent about your finances and what that can look like. Because I think so many of our listeners, I was telling you this before we started the recording, but are taking non-traditional paths in their careers in dance. And so this model might be one that they might explore and be interested in. And I just have one more question on this before we dig into your educational resources I want to talk about. Do you work with contractors, or do you feel like as a freelancer, you're kind of wearing all of the hats? What does that look like for you?
I'm in a good position right now because I can overwork and make a little bit extra money than I need each month to pay my bills. So I've been just putting in a lot of extra time to hire a web designer. And so that's one contractor that I hire. So the new platform I'm on, it is this 3D type thing, and I've switched to, but it's a little beyond me coding wise and things like that. So I was able to hire someone who's a dancer. And so it's a dancer that does web design. So they really get what it is I've been trying to do. So I finally found a contractor that understands our community. And then
That's
I am working
with,
it's like it's a dream for me, and then I found a student, a woman named Brianna, and she is now making kind of the Instagram carousel content for me. So each day in some of the course material, we've now made like small carousels that'll be released so that all this content does actually get released. But when you subscribe, there's a lot more nuance to it. So there'll be like little one-liner carousels and things like that you've seen. And then I have an accountant. That's probably the most important contractor that I hire right now as an accountant. But I do almost everything myself behind the scenes for sure still, outside of those things.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you sharing that, because we've been talking a lot about like board development with nonprofits. So how you're engaging your community and the people kind of that make the organization function. So it's helpful to hear the difference in a subscription model, what that could look like as well. Okay, so now I really want to dig into this new site and everything that you've been working on. To start us off, can you talk about the different levels of membership that you will be offering on your new site?
The website we're doing now uses this idea of gated content, so that the subscription is based on gated content. And so gated content is like kind of any site that uses subscription. You go to the website and there's a certain face on the website. And then when you get an account, you log in, and then there's a different way you can interact with the website. You can watch videos and things like this, or you can interact with the paid content or the gated content. And so what I needed to do was first have a level that's kind of a free level where people sign up, and that's the same as like signing up for an email list. once you have a user account, which is free, you log into the website and the website changes. Another nav bar comes up. And in that second nav bar is where all the gated content is. Depending on what time you looked at the website yesterday, because we were doing a lot of really interesting development on this. So by the end of the day yesterday, it's really cool. Like, as soon as you log in, you get this new nav bar that has your account. And then it has the two different courses. And then it has this one area that says new releases. And so if you have a free account, then you get access to that new releases where it has the newest album that's out. And then it also has a blog area that's going to have like news and updates, but it's also where I'm going to be brainstorming and writing an article. So in this new course, there's 24 days, and each of those originally were a single article on my old site that I've reworked and made specific to this curriculum. So what you'll see is all the new courses kind of step by step being developed as I'm writing all of the course content. I'll release them as small little articles. So it'll, so that's what you get at the free level. And then at the $5 level, in that same new releases area, you get a free mix that's usually 5 to 10 tracks of my music that I compile every month. And there'll be a place where you can click on that and download 5 to 10 tracks off of that. And that allows me to share based on moods or based on kind of like a playlist idea. So I have so much music now that usually people just interact with the latest music that's out, but there's a giant catalog. So this allows me to put older music up. And I've been doing it for about 2 years, and I think I can still do it for another 5 years before I repeat the same 5 to 10 tracks, so it's always kind of new music that is just deeper in my catalog. And then at the $10 level is where you get access to the educational content. And when you click on the music for dance course or the composing for dance course, then you actually see the courses and they come down. And then at the $20 level, which used to be the $10 level, the $20 level is for the benefit that comes at that is 50% off licensing.
No Box Dance is now on Patreon. Gain access to our community resources, early access to Dance Behind the Screen podcast episodes like this one, membership in our creative book club, personalized dance film feedback, and more. Visit patreon.com/KNOWVOXDance to select the membership level that is right for you. I really want to talk about these different courses that you're developing, because I feel like in our first episode, we talked a lot about licensing and things like that. So everyone can go back and listen to that conversation and kind of hear more about what licensing is and what that can look like. And it'll be easy for them to understand when they click through on the site. But I want to dig into these courses. First off, what gave you the idea to even offer resources in this way in the first place?
It's an idea that I had while I was still working in university, and it stemmed from a couple of different places. But one of the most significant place was that I realized that there was no content whatsoever outside of individual musicians that have learned how to teach this stuff. There was nothing out there, nothing at all out there. There are no music for dance books. There's just a few of them, but and there's only really one that is applicable inside of a dance class, and I wanted to really make an impact on that. So I was first looking like, okay, so how can we train more musicians, right? That's the angle, right? Like we need to get more musicians. Like as a university musician, I had a cap to how much money I could make. There was only so far my degree could take me in higher ed, which is ironic because there's not even a degree for what I do in higher ed, right? There's nothing, like there is no degree for what I do. And
that's a good point to bring up too.
You know what I'm saying? So I was like, okay, well, what if I change that? What if I work with dance programs? And I've been really fortunate to work. The last two places I worked at were the Ohio State University and the University of Utah, giant places with resources. And I started talking with them like, how could we do this? And especially at the University of Utah, I got a lot of support for making kind of modeled off of their screen dance program, where you can get a certificate, which holds a lot of weight in our community. That certificate for screen dance. I wanted to do. I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a similar model to that. And then I just, it always comes back to what our community can actually pay. Right? Our communities are not like every community. Our budgets tend to be a lot smaller, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think respecting that and living in the reality of what that is where we can find a lot of success. And Musicians for Dance can't go back to school just to learn how to get a degree to then be able to teach music for dance. That approach to our economy makes no sense. And so I thought, okay, well, again, like, let me put this out. Let me leave higher ed and put this out on my own. Again, like we said, not in a book model, but in a model that can always be updated and refreshed and built upon. And that could be a model for other dance musicians. I'm not looking to be the only one that has this type of thing. I'm actually later on developing a template, kind of a shell that I can share with other dance musicians they can just plug their content in. So this is all built to really change our community, right? In terms of like how music for dance is taught.
I want you to talk more about what this course actually looks like for our listeners, so they can get a picture in their mind of what they're getting if they choose to subscribe to your model. So maybe you want to talk about the Music for Dance course, and then we can talk about Composing for Dance. But I'd love it if you can kind of walk it through on what you get with the course. What I loved is that there is a syllabus, which I really appreciate. The student and educator in me loves that there's like a clear outline to understand what you're going to get out of the course. But could you talk about what else you get when you are a part of this course?
Yeah, it's set up as a 24-day course, or 24 modules to the course. And they go from left to right, just come right down the screen. They all fit on a single iPhone screen, which is really cool. The entire thing fits just on an iPhone screen. And each day, so then there's 3 big sections. The first section is all about listening. Second section is all about rhythm. And the last section is all about collaboration. So it's split up into 8, 8, and 8. And then, the number 24 is most universities and colleges and programs have somewhere between 10 and 15 week semesters or quarters. So I went for the middle of this, 12 weeks. And that's usually that's kind of a median of how many days I needed to cover. If you were doing 2 classes a day, 2 classes a week, right? So, and you were doing it for over 12 weeks. You can, of course, do these in any order that you want. They're not cumulative. It's not one based off the other. You can do them in any way you want. But I designed it like this for folks to be able to go in and present this to their programs that don't have music for dance classes, and develop these courses for their students. So let's say, I'm not sure, I don't think we've ever talked about this where you work outside of this, but let's say you worked at a college and you were adjunct. This is really meant for adjunct, like this is giving a tool to that underrepresented part of our community, and undersupported, representative, and overused and overworked part of our community, and way underpaid part of our community, the adjunct faculty. This is really to give them some tools to make them even more viable and marketable, and to be able to get paid more, to take on, which we can talk about later. But the idea is that so an adjunct faculty member can get on their phone, log in, and right before class, even 30 minutes before class, can open up the day one without ever even looking at the course prior, read the prompt, which the first half of what I write is just talking about why this lesson is important, and the content in kind of in the thinking of it, like playlisting or licensing or collaborative work or something. And there's just 2 or 3 paragraphs describing the importance of the content. And then underneath that, for each day, there's exercise to do experientially with the class. So there's very little prep work to do to even learn how to teach this. Again, the only prep work anyone would need would be to actually have danced, and had experience as a dancer, but it really is just that, like, you click on one of the days and then you read that and you prep and then you go in and then you teach the class. And then there's a syllabus, like you said, for those folks that are going to turn this into an accredited course. And so you just fill in your information for the course, but all of the major points of the content is reflected in the syllabus that you can just download, copy, and then give to your students.
So, Michael, for those who might want to create a similar business platform for their own unique offering, maybe they want to offer courses on dance and film or teaching kids dance or something like that, where would you recommend that they start if they want to create this subscription-based business model?
The first place I would start is reading two books. And you only have to read, I think, just the introduction or chapter 1 of this first book, which is called The Passion Economy. The rest of the book is really fantastic because it walks through very specific entrepreneurs and their stories, and it's super inspiring. But the beginning talks about this culture that we're moving into, that if you're a creative, that this is really our time. Like, we're walking into this time period where we're going to excel. We're going to be the ones that are the experts in creating content and things like this. So it highlights that, and I read it every time I get a little bit low. I read that I read that portion of the book again, and it always pumps me up. And then the other is a book by Seth Godin called Tribes. And I think that really made me understand who my community was. I'm a musician, but I don't feel like I'm part of the music community. I feel like I'm in the dance community. But at the beginning, there was always this feeling like, oh, I'm still a musician. Like, I'm like, just, I was kind of like, I had a hard time finding out who I was. And then I started defining that after I read this book and looking at who are the people that I'm serving and who are the people that support, and they're the dance community, and that's my tribe. And now I feel very, very comfortable feeling like, okay, this is my tribe. So both of those two books are a great place to start. I would actively, I would find a need in the community that matches your skills and values and try to fill it. So for me, my values, I value education, I value learning, I value sharing all of that content. I value sharing that in accessible ways. So not just in university systems that not everyone, where the majority of people do not have access to. They're kind of rarefied spaces in a lot of ways. And insular spaces, so making it accessible both financially and just in the spaces themselves. But I also there are no educational materials, so this was something that was it was a need in the community that really matched my interest and my values. And so that's so filling that, there's a lot of purpose in that, which helps a lot. And so those are the things that, like, I would highly recommend, is like looking at those two, reading those books to get a sense of what your community is, which could end up being a marketing speak, who are going to be your clients and who are going to be your customer base and all of that. But in, our dance world, like our community and who's going to be our tribe. And then, trying to find an empty space and trying to fill that, matching your values.
Do you think social media is influencing the dance world? And if so, how does it influence your work?
Yes, I think it's influencing it heavily. So the first one would be, the one that I use primarily is Instagram. And since we last talked, Zoom even wasn't a thing. There's like so many different things that have come out. I think Instagram is by far has been the motivating factor of sharing video, which is, since the pandemic has happened, has been a huge shift in our community, where video, I think last time we were talking about like how hard it is to share video, and that it was just now like, wouldn't it be cool if it was easier to share video? And now it's ubiquitous in our community. It's been very normalized. And that's a huge shift in a positive direction. I think Instagram has been a great place for us to share content, and specifically for musicians. So for me, I don't know how much you know about Spotify and those types of things, but Spotify doesn't pay really anything at all. That's no way to make money as a musician. It's like gambling. Like maybe you'll pull and the three cherries will come up and you'll strike it if you put a lot of work in. But it's not a really great business model to survive in. But what you'll see is dancers will put on Instagram videos, they'll put, "I do not own the rights to this music." What I don't think our community understands, and I've got a lot of content coming out to help clarify this, but I get a stream every time someone uses a piece of my music with a video. And that stream pays much more than Spotify. And so Instagram has been a place that connects. Like my music doesn't really, this is not self-deprecating, but my music doesn't really mean much like without movement to it. Like, I don't bump my music at parties or things like that, or in my car or anything
your
like
sound for movement. So.
Yeah. And so all these folks started making videos to music of mine, and that's had a huge impact on my career and my life as an artist. And it's been such a supportive way to share my art, because now folks can see people from all over the world doing all different types of movement, all different types of movement to my music. And I think and it supports me financially as well, so I think things like TikTok, like where dance, like I'm still trying to find people in our community on TikTok. It's not really there yet, but I think these platforms where we can interact as collaborators and support each other, where someone makes a video and I remix it and put music on it, or someone takes a piece of mine and makes a video to it, like it's this open sandbox that's supportive for both of our careers.
Michael, how do you say no to the box?
I think for me, it was leaving higher education. I think our community, and by our community, again, I mean the dance community, is very, very intertwined, almost too dependent on the university and college system. There is like the large part of our community can only exist in some sort of relationship with a university or college. And so the way I'm saying no to the box is, one, to leave the university, and then to share educational content in a way that's only been shared in university and colleges, to share it at a much more significant low cost to our community worldwide. And I think having an impact on that will disrupt the economy of our community. So my courses, I really want to see dancers teaching music for dance and making a living as that, right? And I want to see the next course, the other course on my site is composing for dance. So I want to see dancers, and I've already started seeing it, where dancers are composing for other dancers and making a living that way. And then the music that they make then can be licensed. So then dancers are licensing music from other dancers. And then the next course I'm coming out with is a course that, again, you only need a small piece of software, $100. And then it's a course on how dancers can accompany other dancers' classes. So I want to really I want to influence and disrupt and support how dancers can make a living, so that it no longer is a dancer's only route making a living is by luck, by having a dance company or getting work in that way, or by working in a university or college. That there can be these careers that are extremely viable and very secure, with dancers making music within the community. And I want to impact the way dancers are able to make money, and take the idea of just men musicians being in those roles, which it primarily is right now, and to shift that, because our community looks so much more than that. Like it looks so different than and primarily it's just men composing and teaching and accompanying dance classes. And I want that economy to shift. I want that to look different. And that's what I'm doing outside of the box. Because people are like, but they're dancers, they're not musicians. And I just wholeheartedly, and, I've tried this stuff in colleges. So this is not new stuff. I've tried this stuff in universities for the last 15 years. And if the dancers making music in the courses I was teaching, if it was gimmicky and the music wasn't any good, I wouldn't be talking to you right now about this stuff. I'm not trying to sell a gimmick. The music was so incredible because dancers are experts at ideas in space over time, which are excellent credentials for composing. We're so close, right? And dancers just know so much about the important aspects of composing music. And so much of what they do is music theory, that if we let go of this idea of Western music theory, of scales and things like that, and we embrace the technology and software that's out there, we can empower dancers to have a new living that still supports themselves as dancers, but allows them to only work within dance on more of an independent basis. So.
Okay, so to wrap up, we have our last segment. You might remember this from the past. We have our Flash 4, where we ask all our guests to answer 4 questions in a flash. So, Michael, let's see if any of your answers have changed. Are you ready?
Yes, and I came up with new answers for all of them. I'm prepped.
Oh, amazing. If you had to recommend a resource to our audience, what would it be?
A book I just finished reading for the 5th time, which is Jeff Tweedy's book, How to Write One Song. Jeff Tweedy is the musician from Wilco, a famous songwriter. And the whole idea is that you can't make one piece until you've made 500 pieces. Like this idea, like you just need to start with just making one song, so it's really encouraging.
What was the first dance you saw?
So last time I answered this, it was the moment, like the first time I ever engaged with dance. And that was walking past a dance class and being just so amazed that all of this music was being played by one musician and just people flying through the air and a teacher running the whole thing like that. That was it. So I thought of another answer. And it wasn't the first dance I saw, but it's one of the most impactful moments. And I talk about it in the course. So I thought this would be good. It was David Grinke's one of David Grinke's, who used to be a dancer for Paul Taylor. He had a company called Things As I See 'Em, and I used to work with him a bunch. And it was a moment in dance where a dancer just stood on the stage while Aretha Franklin's and I will love you and only be heartbreak for you. What is that song called? The moment I wake up.
I'm singing along with you, but I don't know the name.
I say a little prayer. That's it. I say a little prayer. So, and they just played that song to the person standing on stage. And it was the most amazing experience to see how movement still exists on a stage when someone is not dancing, quote unquote dancing, and how the music colors the tiny little dance that's happened in the small little gestures of a dancer just standing on stage. There's a day in the course just on the tiny dance, that's based on that. So
that's really cool. Do you think social media has a positive influence on the dance world? Yes or no?
Yes.
What is your favorite social media platform?
As I've said before, Instagram is definitely, I think, the one platform that is still staying true to supporting video movement and music. So it's the one I'm going to be on and I'm most active on.
Well, Michael, I'm so glad that you came back on the podcast. I feel like we had such a wonderful conversation. Congratulations on everything that you're creating and the disruption that you're doing for the industry of dance, I think is really exciting. And I know these resources will be so useful for so many people, including myself. For our listeners, could you tell us about the launch date and when they could expect that they get to use the new site?
the launch will be in line with our 10th anniversary with Sound for Movement. So I started Sound for Movement in 2013, right around my birthday, which is April 14th. And I'm not going to wait till April 14th to launch it. I'm going to launch it as soon as I can. I'm afraid I'm just trying not to do it on April Fool's Day, but it's going to be probably like next Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or next Friday. One of those days we're going to do the big plunge and switch the domains and pray that everything works and like just be ready. But I want to give a shout out to my buddy Florian, who is a dancer who has been building the website, which I think is really important that a dancer has been working on this website in collaboration with me. It just reflects who I am and all this work. So Florian really learned Webflow super, super fast and is a genius at it already. And I'll continue to work with him as we develop more stuff. So I'm hoping in the next week, unless we find another problem.
It will all work out. It will all work out. And for those of you who are listening, our episode is coming out in May, so the site should already be live.
Oh,
so
yeah,
make
perfect.
sure you head over. And could you tell us the site so they can type it in and search it right now?
Oh, that's so perfect. Soundformovement.com, and you will see the full site out, and we would have already worked out all the bugs. So, I don't know. You're welcome sounds a little braggy, but hopefully we've worked out all the bugs. Let's go with that. So,
it will be great. And Michael, how can everyone stay connected with you and Sound for Movement?
The main way people contact me now is through either my website. There's ways to start collaborations on my website. There's an easy form to fill out if you want to collaborate with me compositionally. Licensing, there's super easy forms. Actually, can I tell you something pretty innovative I'm working on right now that will happen on the website?
Give us all the secrets.
Maybe it'll be ready by May. Maybe it'll be ready by May. Right. So to tag on from our last episode with licensing, I'm going to do the community one better. And I'm working right now to design it to where you can buy a license and get the license right when you buy it. So all of it's like you just go to the site and you put the names of the songs in and the type of license, and then you pay for it. And then you get the license right then.
Amazing. You heard it here first. Be prepared for that option.
An instant response, and an instant license. Hopefully that should be out by May. That's the very next thing after this launch we're working on. Biggest way I communicate with new folks is on Instagram. And so you're welcome to contact me on there. And I'm Sound for Movement on Instagram. So.
Well, thank you again, Michael, for coming on our show. I really appreciate your time, and congratulations again on everything you're doing with Sound for Movement.
Thank you. I'm such a nerd about this, so I really appreciate being able to share these. So thank you so much. I'm very grateful for the time.
Dance Behind the Screen podcast is produced by Novox Dance, an art service organization that creates, collaborates, and discusses art with artists and the public. Dance Behind the Screen podcast is co-hosted by Azaria Hogans, Raina Mondragon, Martheya Nygaard, and Yejin Choi, with sound design by Daniel Rosas.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at KNOW Box Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.